Hi everybody, Bobby Ogilvy, Project Manager and Professional Coach. So today's question is about how should you approach visualization, and this is in terms of your workflow or in terms of managing others. So this is the third of four videos that are dealing with the topics of, we have attention, we have feedback and learning, we have this one's about visualization, and then the last one's about flow. Okay, so why is visualization important? So first, as an initial premise, the more you can make something visual, the more quickly and thoroughly the mind can understand it. And it just has to do with the magic of how our eyes and our minds work at dealing with data. We're not that great at dealing with numbers. And I'm sure all of you can kind of relate this, right? When it comes to looking at some big, vast spreadsheet or database, which would contain this, the same data as, let's say, some nice graph visualization of that data, graph is way easier. You can still have the numbers and things on it, but it really makes it much more clear and obvious what's going on, what the relationships are, and what's important to understand about this data. So in terms of visualizing our workflow, particularly as we work on ever more complex projects and tasks, which are trying to do ever more intangible and abstract things, visualizing a workflow becomes very, very important. So obviously I do a lot of sales work, and so one of the things we deal with is visualizing our pipeline and what different steps and process need to happen. And we have a gap here at this area, so we need to do this instead, or get more bliss on the front end, more context on the front end to fill this pipeline. Those are all ways to basically add this structure, add specificity and clarity to what would otherwise be a very ambiguous, intangible process, right? You could really say that about anything: project management, product development, all kinds of things, right? Visualization is really important for this. So then if you think about the different task tools that we use, they need to support that. I know one thing we've been talking about a lot the past while has been agile and like sprints, and then scrum or stand-ups, right? So if you think of a sprint, a lot of our task management tools can have this kind of sprinty tone, right? You have a block of work, your 2 week or however many week sprint, right? And you have a chunk of tasks which have been divided up among your team, and then those get assigned to people. So the more quickly that any single member can see what someone is working on, all the better. It also makes sure that you're not duplicating work. It also is kind of a nod to complexity when you're actually taking the tasks. I'm trying to think of the exact term they use for this, but I think they call it parametric growth. And so each time is a doubling. And so maybe the numbers normally when you're doing the sizing of tasks might deal with is would be like 1, 2, 4, 8. And this would be, let's say, in terms of hours, right? And then you start, 8 becomes 16, so that would be like 1 day to 2 days. And then I think the next one is just a week, so that would be 40 hours. And it starts scaling up quite quickly, and that's because the complexity becomes as you're dealing with more complex tasks, they become harder to estimate, the size of them, and also it's like the unforeseen quality of them. And so this is trying to add an innate sense of enough buffer to make those estimates more feasible, more practical. Actually, if you look at the estimation formulas used in project management, they lean slightly longer than the mean. If I'm remembering the formula correctly, it's like you're weighting 3 or 4 times the middle number, and then it's like the average kind of typical number you might expect, and then it's like the least really aggressive number or the longest, most conservative number, right? And you're trying to make an estimate between those, and so it comes out generally slightly longer than the average, right? And that's good from a project standpoint. Better to have a longer timeout that you're then might do faster, as opposed to a really aggressive time you're continually failing to deliver on, right? We want to be making good, clear management decisions, not top-down aggressing people into unfeasible and unclear communication, right? Okay, so back to visualization. So from the individual standpoint, this is you trying to visualize your work. Visualize what you have done, what needs to happen next, and anything that would be the creative or the productive process of your work, right? So, for example, one of the things I'm working on now is a sales process map, right? So it is just that it's a big flow chart with different pieces, and what piece happens after what piece, and when do we need to insert this in, and how do we need to adjust it, and there's no way that I could just in one snapshot idea contain everything in all its full detail on that, right? You need something visual to help start tracking this. Eventually, something becomes complicated enough that you just need to do this, and then this also then helps with iteration and improvement over time, right? You're going to have this big thing and has lots of details. The more you can pinpoint and say exactly what the issue, what the problem you're working on is, and adjust it, just that thing, the better. This is also essentially the same premise of business model canvas or lean model canvas. So what that is this big poster with 8 or 10 different little segments, and it's like a snapshot poster of your business plan, right? And so it's like, what are your expenses, what are your market channels, how's your product differentiated, like what are key relationships you have, all these different things, right? And so you write all these down. You can essentially do it in bullet form, or like sticky notes, something like that, and you'll obviously have to and should change it over time, but that is coming from actual data, actual customer insight, or actual some kind of work that's driving that, and you can adjust just what's needed, right? So again, that's a way of visualizing this big process. That's one thing I really like now about work. I mean, people don't, if you think of yourself, a big long essay or like a 20-page business plan, they're not that practical, right? They sit on the shelf. That's not how people work and think. It's not how they best get down their ideas. It's also not how they best execute, right? If someone gave you a 20-page project plan, you're going to refer to that at the start when you're first going into a project. And then maybe when there's other parts that you need to check back on, maybe about the specifications or maybe some timeline stuff. But overall, it's not that useful. And you could say the same thing about a business plan or even about an essay, right? You get the heart of what that essay is about. There might be times when you need to review a particular point to see what they said about this or that. But like, it's not like every day you're going to be rereading that 20-page written document. That's just not how our mind and our workflow best operates, right? So that's the heart of trying to do this. How can we visualize what we need to be doing, where our work is at, and allowing easy iteration, easy improvement? How do we bring clarity to the abstract? Another thing actually that uses utilization quite a bit are scorecards. So a lot of you guys have probably heard of balanced scorecards, and you can actually make all kinds of different scorecards. So what is a scorecard? It has these different areas. I mean, they could be KPIs. That's up to you if you make them your KPIs. But different areas you're marking them on. And what I really like about the classic one is that there's actually a good sense of causality. So it's not just these 4 different areas you're looking at. I think there's something like, so the final and downstream one, the furthest one down, would be profit or money. And the reason it's the first one down is because it's the most derivative of the actions before it, right? If someone needs more money, you can't just wave a magic wand and you're like, I want twice as much revenue in. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Do you want us to sell more product, or do we need to increase our capacity to be able to sell more product, or is there some efficiency we need to go through, or like what other upstream effects will help cause that downstream thing you want? And I think that's actually the real power of it. It helps you understand flows and causality, as opposed to this short-sighted reactive, I want more of this thing, but I don't know how to do it. But just get me more of that thing. Well, you need to understand the causal roots of how you get that thing, right? And not just short-term how you get it, but long-term how you can establish advantage or efficiency or operationalize that, right? Scorecards are great at that. So, what are the other ones other than money? I think it's something like there's a people and training kind of nod. There's kind of an organizational process nod, and then I think the furthest one back has to do with kind of innovation and change, or it has a strategy kind of tone, something on those lines, right? And in theory, they're supposed to be kind of linear, right? And so it's like these innovation or change or strategy changes affect your process and operations, affect your people and talent and how you're doing things, or your customer service, and then ultimately affect your money, right? Another cool thing about scorecards, which relates to, again, they were thinking about visualization, right? So if you think of each of these as like a big chart that might have, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 30 little areas you're getting marked on, right? There's a whole bunch of, so let's say it's 30 times 4, 120 areas you're looking at, right? That's a lot of attention. Where does the manager place his attention? So normally scorecards are inverted in that it's not about how effective these areas are. It's because you want, broadly speaking, the whole thing to go well, and you want to place effort towards the real risk, the real gap areas. They will often highlight in red the most important areas, the most dangerous, the most gapped areas, right? Whereas the normal ones might be in green, or might not be highlighted. And the point is to say, well, of these 120 things, or however many options are here, these are the 5 or 10 or 3 you really need to pay attention to. These are the big gaps that are killing us. So when good executives which know this are putting out their plans for a year, however long their plan is, they will know this. Beyond saying they know what their strategy is, they know causally how we're going to get there. And so, we're having, as we're having this, as we're increasing our market share and selling more product, we're noticing quality control issues where we were having 1 in 200 defects to 1 in 40 defects. So we need to get that up. Or we're having customer service issues where our retention rate has dropped from 24 months down to 8 months. So there's obviously this service retention thing that's going on, right? Or whatever the thing is. And they need to then know where to place effort to fix those. Again, this is all on a management level. An excellent way of visualizing what needs to happen, where to place effort. And they can all add a lot of clarity. Again, we're intellectual and innovation and management workers at this point. So the more we can bring visualization to abstract process, the better. And also the more we can work in iterations, in brief stints of something, or you could think of them as drafts or kind of working documents, where something gets better and better and honed over time, all the better. You're not going to produce this perfect 20-page plan in your first go, but you might after your third, fourth, fifth iteration, right? Or you could think of building it in pieces and bringing the pieces together, right? These are all things that help us get the best out of us and help us clarify our thoughts and focus enough so that we can operate effectively. So I hope you learned something about visualization today, visualizing your workflow, visualizing where you need to place effort, visualizing the intangible. I'm Bobby Ogilvy, Project Manager and Professional Coach. I hope to talk to you guys again soon.